If we understand that all encounter within the world is encounter with beings, and if we understand that magical influence is influence within a relationship with another being and or within a family of beings, then the next key to realize is that magic is communication and communication is magic. Any change that may be induced, any condition that may be set, is effected by communication. Communication between beings, one of whom in the conversation is the magician. Magic is to make a request of or invitation to another being to mutually participate with you so that the presence and property of that being enters your experience. Appearance. In order to be able to make a request or invitation, in order to communicate, the magician must possess the language of that being. Thus we see that the path of the magician is a dedication to learn language and how to converse in order to induce change due to a request. If you have a specific art or craft, that art is teaching you language, the language of that art, and of the beings that serve and are served by that art. Not all language or capacity to communicate is in terms of words like human language. Communication may or may not involve the magician actually opening their mouth. True communication is sharing between two or more beings, sharing their nature and energy and whatever knowledge they hold. This sharing can take place in many ways. Each being has their own way of communication or sharing, their own language. Each being has their own nature and properties. The knowledge of the magician is to be intimate with the nature, properties, and capacity for changes in conditions within any given being, the language with which they may be communicated with or influenced. This knowledge and the requests for change are accomplished through conversation in the manner of request and invitation. The magician must be able to speak or transmit in the language of the being or beings relevant to the change. This may also involve a translation process from the language of the magician, as a being themselves, to and from the language of the other being or beings in the conversation regarding the change. Communication is not in one direction. The magician must also be practiced in and humbly willing to hear and listen. Understanding language is part of the equation of communication. No being in heaven nor earth wants to be mistreated in conversation. The magician enters these conversations with humility, responsibility, and honoring. Remember that beings that respond to your requests, your influence, are serving you by helping you bring appearances into your experience that match your desires for enjoyment. That service of others toward them ought to inspire the magician to a constant attitude of humility and gratitude toward the world earth, toward the family. I am not suggesting that all beings, including your chair, have the sentience of a human being. Every being is themselves. If you are a human, you are human. If you are a little bee, you are a bee. If you are a chair, you are a chair. Properties and language are as they are. The magician comes to know each being as it is, and the language with which to communicate with it, and specifically regarding any given being related to a desired change and appearance. Key. Magic is communication. Communication is magic. Key. The setting of conditions in order to induce change, in order to allow appearance, is done by invitation, requesting the participation of relevant beings based on their nature and or properties relevant to the intended conditions. Key. The magician makes requests or invitations in the language of the relevant beings, which may include the necessity of translation. Key. The depth and width of a magician's influence depends on their capacity to know and communicate with beings. Key. The learning of language is one major thread of a magician's dedication. Key. Practicing an art is essentially the learning of a specific language and the coming to know specific beings that serve and are served by that art. Key. The magician converses with the world and its children humbly, honorably, and gratefully.